Hello and good evening. You're watching the news on Canal. I'm your host, Karim Zachary. Coming up next. Algeria reiterates its firm position as regards the peaceful settlement of disputes and calls for a common voice of Africa at the UN Security Council. OPEC agrees to stick to its existing oil output policy despite fears of the new Omicron coronavirus variant and possible use of its crude oil reserves. Tension is still running high in Morocco as students keep taking to the streets to voice their rejection of the normalization process with the Zionist entity. Good evening again. Those were today's headlines first in our news. And before we develop the top stories, let's begin with the parliamentary activity as a meeting of the Bureau of the Council of the Nation was chaired on Thursday morning by Salah Boudjil and extended to the parliamentary groups, or our group president and the quaestor. This meeting was devoted to the adoption of the programming calendar for the Senate work in plenary from December the 7th to the 9th. On the occasion, the office praised the high-level climate of democracy, which marked the local elections of November 27th by sending a congratulatory message to the people who have always responded by fulfilling their civic duty. A plenary session at the National People's Assembly was chaired this morning by Ibrahim Boughali and was devoted to oral questions. 6 sectors were concerned: energy and mines, culture and the arts, industry, housing, urbanism and the city, public works, as well as labor, employment and social security. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community abroad, Ramtala highlighted during the 8th edition of the high-level seminar on peace and security in Africa held Thursday in Oran province. Details with Manal Maafa.
From Oran province, the head of the Algerian diplomacy, Ramtala Mamra, emphasized that the high-level seminar on peace and security in Africa on the necessity to speak with one common voice in order to defend Africa's positions within the UN Security Council, and that to influence the decision-making process, a step which is a major challenge for African countries as it represents one of the most powerful UN bodies.
In a context marked by deteriorating in the overall peace and security landscape, our continent is in need of a more prominent role of the African Union in the prevention and resolution of conflicts. And I believe that the choice of the 2 first sessions' themes is more than relevant in this regard, as it highlights the importance of further developing the African governance and peace and security architecture to address the ever-increasing challenges to African countries that African countries are struggling with nowadays.
We are grateful to Algeria for spearheading this great initiative. The current seminar is organized at the crucial time for the new members before they take their seat. This is particularly important in light of the complex challenges that Africa is currently facing.
The participants stressed the need to act collectively to avoid all factors that could jeopardize the unity of the African Union. Ramtala Mamra reiterated Algeria's commitment, which is preparing to sit on the UN Security Council and contribute on behalf of the African Union during 2024-2025.
And on the sidelines of the conference and amidst preparation for the 2022 Oran Games, Foreign Affairs Minister Ramtala Mamra, accompanied by Ethiopia's Foreign Minister and several foreign delegation representatives attending the conference, had a tour of the sports infrastructure of the Olympic complex and Olympic Village, where they had an overview of the progress achieved in preparing for the major event, Oran Mediterranean Games. OPEC and its allies decided to continue the increase of production, an additional 400 per day is expected in January 2022. The decision was taken at the end of the 23rd ministerial meeting of the OPEC+. The oil market and its prospects in the short and medium term are stable, a factor which motivated this decision, according to the Minister of Energy and Mining, Mohamed Arqab. The social front is still in turmoil in Morocco. Students join protests against normalizations with the Zionist entity. These have been strongly repressed in several Moroccan cities.
It is an excessive repression practiced by the Makhzen against the students from the various universities of the Kingdom of Morocco after they protest for several days against Moroccan policies in the region. Repression is getting faster, and on the other hand, the Moroccan streets is facing a unique uprising, and indeed one of the strongest uprisings that the Moroccan street has known. The Moroccan people are not weakened. On the contrary, several Moroccan cities joined this challenge after the visit of the Zionist defense minister and the normalization accord with the Zionist entity, which constitutes a strong blow to the dignity of the Moroccan people. In the face of all this cruelty and violence to which the Moroccan students and people are subjected, the Zionist defense minister, and during his visit to Morocco, had the right to a festive reception that could not be warmer. A shocking image that aroused the resentment of Moroccans, and how could it be otherwise, an act against the identity, religion and customs of the Moroccan Muslim people. In addition, the signing of this agreement of shame and this celebration constitutes a blatant assault on the Palestinian cause, because signing with this person means complacency with what he practices, and it is a provocation for the Moroccan people who see that the Makhzen regime seems ready to do anything to preserve its interests.
The Moroccan people's anger has not wavered and keeps growing since the signing of normalizations accord between the Zionist entity and Al-Makhzen regime, as protests are intensifying and the streets are still rumbling. More details with Rania Al-Bahri.
Moroccans keep taking to the streets to voice their anger against the normalization process initiated by the Makhzen regime, a situation which they denounce and reject categorically, believing that normalization is a shame and an attack against dignity of the Moroccan people. Slogans and cries are everywhere criticizing the Moroccan officials. The demonstrators are determined to keep pressure until normalization is cancelled. We are determined to struggle until the cancellation of the normalization agreement with the enemy. November 29 is the International Day of Solidarity with Palestinian people. We hail this International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. Hostile slogans are chanted in the streets of various Moroccan towns, despite repression being exercised by the police. Moroccans do not intend to give up. Moreover, since the start of the demonstrations, the Moroccans day by day are denouncing the visit of the Zionist Minister of Defense. We are here to protest and condemn the shameful visit of the Zionist minister to our country. We consider this visit as a big betrayal. The Moroccan Front in support of Palestine and against normalization is planning an action program against the normalization of relations between Morocco and the Zionist entity.
According to a French weekly newspaper, the French Council of the Islamic Cult, headed by Mohammed Moussawi, has been infiltrated by the Makhzen secret services. This is Morocco's second spying scandal after the Pegasus incident. The spy is a Moroccan secret agent suspected of attempting to influence Islamic practices in France through his alleged role of agent dealing with the president of the CFCM. According to the media, Mohammed B., who has lived in France since 2010, is the subject of an arrest warrant of March 2018 for bribery of public officials. He's suspected of having tried to infiltrate several French Islamic organizations on behalf of the Moroccan secret services. The fugitive managed to grab dozens of sensitive information about people more or less involved in the terrorist movement, according to the same source. In the Sahrawi file, human rights organizations are calling for an end to Moroccan exactions against Sahrawi civilians who see their rights violated on a daily basis. The details in the following.
The barbaric repression in the occupied Western Sahara continues. The siege on the Sahrawi people continues. A terrible repression against innocent civilians whose only demand is to live in a free and independent state. Brutality, crime, practices known to all, resorted to by the Makhzen security services against defenseless Sahrawi people who constantly live under the threat of ill treatment with arbitrary arrests, assassination and judiciary. The human rights situation in Western Sahara is unbeatable, according to international human rights organizations, which this week urged Morocco to immediately stop the brutal attack on civilians, including Sahrawi activist Sultana Khaya, and to conduct a thorough and impartial investigation into the abusive use of force and attacks against her in person and family. These organizations also noted that in recent years, access to Western Sahara has become increasingly difficult for foreign observers, denouncing the silence of the UN in relation to their constant calls to expand the UN mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, and the monitoring of human rights in the occupied Sahrawi territories.
According to a special weather report by Meteo Algérie, it will this weekend in several provinces of the west of the country. The snowfall will concern heights exceeding 1,000 meters of altitude and those of the center exceeding 900 meters of altitude. The concerned provinces are Tlemcen, العباس، سعيدة، نعامة، البيض، لغواط، جلفة، تيارت، تيسمسيل، عين دفلة، مدية، بليدة، بويرة، تيزي وزو، جاية، جيجل، برج باريريج، سيتيف، باتنا، خنشلة, and Tibasa. The estimated snow depth is between 5 and 15 centimeters. This weather report is valid until tomorrow at 3 p.m. So be careful when you get out to the streets. Moving on to a different topic now, let's delve now into Al Bayt province to discover the oasis of Berzina with its breathtaking landscape that attracts a lot of tourists. Details with Rania Al-Bahri.
The oasis of Berzina in Al Bayt province is a breathtaking landscape with an important natural and archaeological assets, but also many historical monuments, which makes of it a gorgeous destination of Saharan tourism. Visitors all agree in describing Berzina as one of the most beautiful oases of the country, as now it's important to promote local tourism, and it is more beautiful than they thought, to their surprise, and would recommend it as a very beautiful destination, as the locals are very warm. The mountains of El Gur, a majestic place with sand dunes as far as the eye can see, and it is around a campfire and a cup of tea that the visitors end their hike. I could come here every weekend as the best way to clear your mind and enjoy the peace and the scenery. During holidays, the number of tourists is very important, as for the weekends we welcome from 50 to 250 people. Remains a destination of choice with a rich and varied tourist tours, which attracts moreover a lot of people.
Well, that's it for me and the rest of the English news team, thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.